Are you looking for a way to make co-parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Hey folks, welcome to another episode. Today we're talking about breaking the cycle. We're looking at alcohol, divorce, and emotional healing. Alcohol so often plays a hidden yet significant role in the breakdown of marriages and relationships. And today we're going to look at the impact that it has on emotional intimacy and explore how emotional sobriety, which you've heard me speak about before, can really transform our connections with loved ones. And today with me, my guest is Veronica Valli, and she's a psychotherapist, a sobriety coach, a celebrated author. We'll be talking about her book, and she has her own personal journey from addiction to sobriety. And so tune in because we're going to have some real pearls of wisdom today. Thank you so much for joining me, Veronica.
Thank you, Karen. It's nice to be here.
So before we dive into the topic, I love to kick off my episodes with something unique about each guest. What can you share that maybe everybody doesn't know that has nothing to do with what you do for a living?
Okay, this is, God, you gave me the heads up about this. So I'm almost 52. I'm a mum of 2 boys and British. And my unique thing is I'm completely obsessed with zombie films. Like, I love The Walking Dead. I've done the tour. Like, I've got the t-shirt. And everybody, like, my husband's like, this is the weirdest thing about you. I'm like, I don't know why. Like, it's funny because I have another friend who's a psychotherapist, and we both are. And I'm like, we have a plan when it's going to go down. We know what we're going to do.
So that's hysterical. I love that. Zombie fanatics.
Any zombie film, pretty much any kind. Or book or TV show, I'm just obsessed with. It's like, that show on HBO, The Last of Us, I love that show.
That is an absolutely interesting tidbit. So I want to start off by talking about just there's a lot of different perspectives on alcohol, on is it a disease? Is it a decision? Does it have ramifications through generations? So can you just give us your take on the role or problem with alcohol?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I've been sober myself for 24 and a half years. So I got sober when I was 27. It was relatively young. Alcohol was not my friend. We live in a very wet world, and we are bombarded with messages, and we are all convinced and sold to the idea that alcohol is the best way to have fun, excitement, belonging, connection, relax, to reward yourself, and to get romance and sex. So we are if you think in our media, in our TV shows, in your peer groups, in our culture, that messaging, implicit and explicit, that alcohol is the best way to connect and have fun and all those things, right? So when you're growing up, who doesn't want to have those things? I mean, who doesn't want to have those things at any age, right? Those things all sound great. Those things are what makes life worth living. So we drink because we believe that belief, and we're very, very good at ignoring the consequences. Like, we just focus on perceived benefits, and it's a perception. This word is very important, perception. We perceive alcohol is all benefits, like it's all the fun, all the connection, all the things. I have lots of clients who are like, alcohol's clearly a catastrophe in their life. And then they're like on a Friday at the end of the day, I sit on the porch with my husband and we share a bottle of wine, and I don't want to lose that. And sobriety is just a shift in perception. That's all it is. And with me and many of the clients I work with, it just became really, really painful. And pain is a great motivator. So there's a kind of period of time when you stop drinking where you're in this no man's land, where you feel better because you're not drinking and you're not hungover, but you're a bit lost. Your body and brain and dopamine hadn't got back to normal, all that kind of stuff. And it can feel a bit of a trudge. And if you keep going, what happens is you get to this new place where you can have fun, excitement, belonging, connection, all of the things, sober, and it's better. So a lot of my work is helping people have that shift in perception. And the other thing is, all my clients look like you, Karen. All my clients are middle-aged, middle-class women who have college degrees and nice jobs and nice houses and cars and go on nice holidays. And on the outside, everything looks absolutely fine. And because as a culture, we all think an alcohol problem is a homeless person. And I'm not a homeless person, so I must be fine. If I can just figure out how to manage it. I have doctors, lawyers, teachers, pilots, every profession under the sun. And again, on the outside, nobody would really think that they had an alcohol problem. So we're very good at this delusion around alcohol, that everything's fine, everything's normal. And what we get stuck in is, if I can just figure out how to manage it, just figure out how to drink, but not be hungover and not go too far and not. So we waste a lot of effort and energy trying to manage our drinking. And there is that end where people do end up homeless or in jails or all that kind of stuff because their alcohol problem is so severe. But there's a much bigger problem in the middle. There's a much, much bigger problem in the middle.
It's interesting because as you say that, I've never been somebody who drinks a whole bottle or wakes up super hungover, but I do feel like there have been plenty of times in my life where I still leaned on it. So if it's 2 glasses every night, 7 nights a week, it's still problematic. Can you talk a little bit about that spectrum, if I could? So you've got people who are on high pressure jobs, and once they start drinking, it's like, I have a girlfriend, she's one leads to another, and it's just the way it goes. But then there are the people who that's not exactly it, but it's still a problem. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to probably share some information that you might and your listeners might find uncomfortable. We're really good at rationalizing our drinking. And the truth is, alcohol is absolutely catastrophic for the human body. So 2 glasses of wine every night for a woman is a really large amount of alcohol. It's a really a large, it severely increases your risk of all kinds of cancers and all that kind of stuff. So there's 4 questions that I ask my clients, because nobody shows up in front of me by accident. If you're listening to this podcast and you've got to this point, there's no accident.
Right.
So there's 4 things that people with an alcohol problem do. They drink, they think about drinking, they think about not drinking, and they recover from drinking. And the biggest indicator is the thinking about not drinking. It's I'm going to do dry January. I'm not going to drink during the week. I'm just going to drink during the weekends. I'm not going to drink spirits. I'm just going to drink wine. I'm going to take a break. It's the thinking about not drinking that is the biggest red flag that your drinking is problematic. Because people who don't have a problem with alcohol, they don't think about it.
Right.
They just don't think about it. This is how normal people think about alcohol. So I might go to a party at the weekend. They think, normal people, my husband very rarely drinks, but normal people think about alcohol the same way I think about sandwiches. So I'm at my party and a plate of sandwiches goes by and I think, oh, that's nice, thanks, yeah, I'll have a couple of those. And plate goes around again, go, no, I'm good, thanks. And then maybe for lunch today I'll have a sandwich, that'd be nice. And then tomorrow I have a salad, and the next day I have soup. And that's literally how much I think about sandwiches. That's how much I think. So it's the planning, the worrying, it's that. So what happens is we sacrifice bandwidth to our relationship with alcohol, and bandwidth is energy and space to think thoughts. And if you are doing those 4 things, you are sacrificing a pretty large amount of your bandwidth, maybe 30-40% of your bandwidth, arguing with yourself about whether you're going to have a glass of wine or not. So then to go through your day, you've only got access to 60-70% of your bandwidth. And I know your show is about divorce, which is probably one of the most stressful things anybody can go through. You need your bandwidth. But So we give up all this bandwidth because we are having this argument. And this is all going on, by the way, this is all going on internally.
Yes.
And we can mask it. And that's why nobody knows. An alcohol problem shows up on the inside years before it shows up on the outside.
Tell me about that last statement.
So again, what we think an alcohol problem is what we can see on the outside. You know, if you're homeless and drinking out of a brown paper bag, we can see that that's clearly a problem. You've got your fourth DUI, you got fired from another job, you're like, oh God, they always fall over, like they've always got bruises because they're always falling over drunk. Like we can visually see it. But an alcohol problem shows up internally in how you feel. It shows up in shame, self-loathing, guilt, fear. Fear is a big engine of an alcohol problem, fear and anxiety. And we can mask all of those things, right? I can say, hi, Karen, how are you? Go, yeah, fine. Yeah, good. Yeah. But inside, you've just come off of 5 days of just shame and self-loathing. And so it shows up on the inside where only we know about it. And we just try and push those feelings down.
Let's take, and that's so helpful. And I've actually read that once before about if you spend that much time thinking about it, that's your red flag. You've got an issue, you want to address it. So for the person going through a divorce who's like, you know what, I'm working full time, I got kids, I'm dealing with this divorce, I just need something to dial down and relax. I think that, like, when you talk about perception, I think that there are fallacies.
Yeah.
And so let's take that one, because I would say for my audience, such a huge portion of it, I know
Yeah.
that let me just take the bloody edge off.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that.
Yeah, again, it's a perception, and it's one that's really perpetuated in our culture, right? So you'll see the TV show, you'll see the beautiful mom with the hairs all blown out, and she's going through a divorce in the TV show, and she comes home and it's been so tough, and her ex is such an asshole, and she has that beautiful glass and she sips it staring into the fire looking at the sunset. And then you see the next day she's making stuff for her kids, she's in her yoga gear, Lululemon, right? No, you don't see the fact that she woke up at 3 a.m. and didn't get back to sleep because of the whole way that alcohol affects your biology. You don't see that she's like really cranky and didn't actually have to get up at 5 a.m. to blow her hair out and look amazing. It's like we just don't get these realistic images of what drinking does. So what you're describing there is a belief system, not a fact. So the truth is, alcohol is going to make any kind of anxiety worse. It's really going to mess with your brain chemistry, how you make dopamine and serotonin. It causes alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. So this is just science. It's going to make you depressed because it's a central nervous system depressant. So that's just a story. It's a lie we tell ourselves, like, I deserve it, I've had a tough day. But it's going to make all of the things that you're trying to manage worse, not better. And that's a big part of it. It's the beliefs that we have about alcohol and our relationship with alcohol. That's where we have to do the work. Those are the hardest things to break because those beliefs are very entrenched.
So this is great. So what I'm really hearing you say is, through the media and just television, what have you, movies, we've been indoctrinated into believing something that's not true. And
yes,
the ads have the promise, the marketing is the perception, but what we get when we engage is the pain.
Yes, and the cost of drinking is so much higher than we realize, and we've been trained to not notice it, right? I remember when I was drinking, I had really bad hangovers. Like my hangovers were terrible, and my peer group would say, "Oh, yeah, but worth it though, right? It was so worth it, right?" And I'd always go, "Oh God, yeah, it was never worth it." I'm going to just tell you, it was never worth it. Like the whole, when I really looked at my drinking, the best part of my drinking was the anticipation of drinking. Like that was the best bit. The thinking about 2 or 3 hours before having drink was the best part of the whole thing. The first drink is always the best one, but then that leads to the second and third. And then the fun bit was maybe an hour and 25 minutes out of a whole sort of 36-hour thing. because guaranteed for a day and a half afterwards, I felt like absolute crap. So no, actually wasn't worth it. Wasn't worth it. For the little amount of time I got, it wasn't worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. That just says it all in a nutshell. But before, and I want to get into emotional sobriety, but before we go there, I want to talk about being married to somebody. So when I'm married to somebody who their family tree is dripping with alcohol, they drink, their siblings drink, their parents drink, when that is what I have married into, and I know that the I has a part in that, but what is your guidance to the person who is now in some stage of divorce or on the fence? Should I mend or should I end? And can I get him or her to stop drinking? What do you have to say to those people?
Okay, this comes up a lot with my clients. First of all, there's several scenarios. Sometimes we marry our drinking buddy, right? And our relationship is around cocktails and happy hour and wine pairing, all that kind of stuff. And then what often happens, it's usually the wife who, not always, but usually has had enough and wants to stop drinking. And sometimes they'll get a lot of sabotage from their partner who doesn't want to lose their drinking buddy. So like, what's the big, well, you just need to cut down. Like you do like lots of undermining and sabotage. Then if the wife does get sober, then sometimes what can happen is down the road, the partner joins them. And it's usually, I want to say at least a year, because after a year, they can really see the difference. Physically, they look better. There's a spring in their step. They just they can't avoid seeing how much better that person is. So this is the most important thing I want your audience to know is you cannot get anyone sober and you need to stop trying. Like that is the biggest thing, is get your way out of your lane. Get back on your side of the street. I say to my clients when they stop drinking, they're like, oh, you know, what am I going to do about my partner? And I'm like, just you first of all, we learn about boundaries. I'm sure you teach that in your work as well, about how to have boundaries, what's their business, what's not their business, and to just say, really, you do you. If you wouldn't mind for the next couple of months, have a drink at your friend's house or at the bar, just not like around me, that kind of stuff. Just real, and leave it. Don't say anything else. Just leave it at that. So you cannot get anyone sober. There's nothing you can say. All you can do is be on your side of the street, have really strong boundaries, be clear on what's acceptable to you and what's not acceptable to you. Take care of your own mental and emotional health and your children, if there's children involved. And you have to let that person have their own journey. And easier said than done. It is easy to say this. It is very hard to watch someone you love self-destruct. But I'm going to tell you, they will get to a solution much faster if you get the hell out of their business and put all of your energy into yourself and having boundaries, taking care of yourself, all of that kind of stuff. And everyone does it. Everyone like tries to fix their partner or whatever, but you can't, and they won't listen to you. And you know that, right? We know that. We've got tons that we just think, oh, this time would be different.
Yeah, no, I so agree with that. When I was going through my divorce, I went into Al-Anon and really learned so much about stop nagging, stop focusing, stop complaining. You have your own bucket of problems to deal with. Let him deal with his or not. And I like the way you said that too, because no matter how smart you are, no matter how savvy you are, no matter how articulate you are, you're still not going to have any impact on another person.
None. No, and it's the same with an adult child as well. And Al-Anon teaches that. It's like, stay on your side of the street, work on yourself, because there is something to be said, and this is a classic dynamic in the umbrella of alcoholism, is you've got the alcoholic, the person who's got the problem, and you've got the codependent who's trying to fix them and save them and make it better. And what happens with the codependent person is they don't have to look at themselves or their own problems, their own issues, because they're so busy with someone else's. So there's a mutual kind of illness there.
Yeah, 100%. That's the mic drop. I think that for so many of us, and to pull out for a moment, whether it's a neurodivergent person, someone who has a mental health issue, borderline personality or narcissism, or if somebody is an addict or an alcoholic, all of those personalities attract the codependent, people-pleasing person who
Yes.
then
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
pour all of their energy into fixing somebody other than themselves
Yeah.
and not even seeing, right, their own
Yeah.
killing and shortcomings that need to be addressed.
Yeah. And these are talking about emotional sobriety. These are fundamental emotional sobriety skills, is having really good boundaries and really being aware of staying on your side of the street, right? In parenting, I have two elementary school boys. It's like constantly having to rein myself in and not do it for them, letting them make mistakes, letting them figure it out, because those are essential life skills that they have to learn. So I think we have to continue to like just make work. Okay, I've wandered over. Here I go. I've wandered over again. I need to get back over here. And it's hard to do that because we're talking about people we care about.
Right. And it is a little bit, I grew up at the ocean, so I always have these analogies. You go into the ocean and there's a riptide, and you don't even realize you're 50 feet over, you're 100 feet
Yeah.
over because you were just standing there and gently, right? And the same thing happens with trying to caretake someone else. It's like I'm in my lane and all of a sudden there I am focusing on them again. Let's talk a little bit about the definition of emotional sobriety, and then I would love for you to give us some of the high
Yeah.
level key areas. Your kids may not be the only ones taking tests this year. SoberLink is the #1 alcohol monitoring device on the market for parents who need to prove their sobriety. Here's how it works. Your co-parent will test at scheduled times each day. Built-in facial recognition confirms their identity. Tamper sensors flag any attempts to cheat. And results get sent instantly to your phone. So you know your kids are with a sober parent, whether it's during school nights or weekends away. Set your family up for success this school year. Visit soberlink.com/JBD to learn more and get $50 off your device. Are you looking for a way to make co-parenting easier? Talking Parents can help you streamline your shared parenting responsibilities and minimize conflict by keeping all interactions organized and documented. With Talking Parents, you can stop worrying about the he said, she said, and focus on what matters most, your children. Download the app in the Apple or Google Play Store and start a 30-day free trial today. Divorce feels like an overwhelming perfect storm as you navigate pain, fear, and confusion while struggling with unfamiliar legal procedures and the pressure to make complex decisions that will impact the rest of your life. Our free Rapid Relief Call provides the clarity and confidence you're yearning for. Visit rapidreliefcall.com for support and guidance today.
So emotional sobriety. So sobriety is 10% not drinking alcohol and 90% emotional sobriety. And emotional sobriety is that we have to put effort into this. It's a practice. It's not something you get and you're done. It is a practice, just like physical exercise, right? You could get really fit, but if you don't keep going, you'll lose it. So it's the same with emotional sobriety. So the destination of emotional sobriety is that you feel comfortable in your own skin, you like yourself, and you have mastery over your emotions. So that's the place we want to get to. So we get to that place by doing this work. And it's specifically really good boundaries, practice having really good boundaries, being able to identify and balance your needs according to your circumstances, because circumstances change all the time. Being able to, and I imagine this is pretty big for your audience, being able to process and let go of resentments so that resentments do not own you, so you can release them. Being able to identify and change your limiting beliefs, and being able to live in gratitude. And that is an emotional sobriety practice. And those are specific skills. I teach my clients specifically how to have those things. And if you practice them, it changes you and it creates a shift in perception. You just begin to see things differently. And when you see things differently, your whole experience of life will transform.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. And so my sense of what you're saying is for those who are having a challenging relationship with alcohol, the tendency to feel bad or feel shame or live in resentment or get bitter about something, like this is all the dis-ease that we live with when we're not living emotionally sober.
Yeah, I think, again, you asked me at the beginning about, is it a disease, the dis-ease? Like, there is a hereditary component, there is all that kind of stuff, but I just, I really do think it is a spiritual condition. Whatever, because of your circumstances, because of your personality, I fell into the belief that of looking for outside things to fix me.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it is. And I think that's the world, isn't it? Is that food or screens or money or gambling or gaming or sex or whatever, like codependency, that's a huge one. I was very much stuck in that for a long time. The right man, or like once I meet the one, like everything will be perfect and wonderful, is looking for things outside of myself to manage how I felt inside, because I couldn't. And that's, you'll either keep doing that and finding a new outside thing, or the work is internal. It's an inside job. It is all, and it's again, most of us just didn't learn this stuff when we were young. We didn't grow up in families that role modeled it, or that kind of stuff. So this is the work that everybody has to do, because there's consequences for everybody if we don't.
Yeah, it does seem fascinating to me. I don't know if it's just because of the world that I personally tend to live in, but it seems as though there's so much more of an emphasis on, if I fix myself, everything around me will be fine. And so I have, my children are in their mid to late 20s, and I look at them in the way that they look at the world, and I just think, I was so oblivious in my 20s. I was just doing everything wrong. I didn't know anything. If I was upset, something external caused me to be upset. If I did A, B, or C, I'd feel better if I did something on the outside. And even in today's society, in America, we have so many people who go through procedures to stop eating, and then they become sex addicts or drug addicts or alcoholics or shopaholics. There's always...
I actually wrote about that in my first book that I wrote for like 15 years ago, called Why Are You Drinking, How to Stop. And I wrote it actually longer than that. Maybe, yeah, it was about 15 years ago. And when they started doing the surgery, the bariatric surgery for people who were very, very obese, and I can't remember the statistic, but it's very high. They realized very quickly that I think it was like 88% of them then became alcoholic and addicts, because all they'd done is taken away their drug of choice, which was binge eating. So then they realized they needed to have some kind of therapeutic program as well in it. Okay. So yeah, that was a really perfect example of it.
Yeah. So let's look at, within emotional sobriety, maybe we can just take one or two. Where do you start people when someone comes into your program? Do they begin with boundaries, or is there a different kind of on-ramp? How does that begin?
The first thing I actually try and get people to do is something I call the true cost of drinking, where we do a really good cost benefit analysis of their drinking, because that helps people when they come to work with me. No one shows up in front of me by accident, right? I've never had in my 22 years anyone show up and I've listened to them and gone, "You're fine.
Yeah.
Why are you here?" But people still have this, maybe in a few months I can. And our brains are so good at romanticizing and blurring kind of the reality of our drinking. So we do a cost benefit analysis of their drinking, like how much it costs in money, how much money they've spent over their lifetime, not just in alcohol, associated costs, healthcare, takeout food, taxis, that kind of stuff, time. And that's the big one. Like, how much time do you spend thinking about drinking, recovering from drinking? The time one is huge. Impacts on health, how it affects our relationships, how it affects our opportunities. And then I'm like, so there you go. You can drink if you're prepared to pay this cost. And this cost will only ever increase over your lifetime. So that's the first thing, because it really helps people really see. But again, because it's so embedded. An alcohol problem is a homeless person. I'm not a homeless person. So it's really actually...
I have people, they're like, he's functional. He's really functional. And so, right, it's like all of these little nuances that we attach to it.
And when they say functional, I'm going to say what that usually means is they're working, and the job is usually the last thing to go. So the job is the last thing to go, because the job's where the money is, the money's where the booze is. Now, like, they may still be married and with their family, but I bet they're not functioning well as a parent or as a spouse. So functioning, that's just one of those BS phrases. They're doing what they need to do to keep the supply, is what they're doing.
Beautiful. So you do this cost benefit analysis.
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like it's pretty crystal clear at the end
Yeah.
of that little exercise exactly what's
Yeah.
going on.
And it's a process. Here's the thing. And people, again, if they've listened to this point, the reason that we dance around, do I have a problem and should I stop? And the research shows people will do that for 10 years. From the first day they go, maybe there's something up with my drinking, to actually stopping. You're trying every which way to find the third door, like the miracle equation that means that they can carry on drinking. The reason for that is because of the belief system. It feels devastating. When I stopped drinking at 27 years old, I was devastated. I thought my life was over. I was never going to have fun again. I was definitely never going to get laid again. I was never going to go dancing again. I was going to just sit in the corner being very boring and gray because I believed that it was the best way to have fun, excitement, that kind of stuff. So because if you believe that alcohol is the best way to have it, and if you don't have alcohol, you won't get those things, it feels devastating. So a lot of the times we're trying to avoid, we don't want to feel those feelings, right? Because we've used alcohol to numb any unpleasant feelings. But here we are at this crossroads that if we stop drinking, we're going to feel some really unpleasant feelings. We don't have alcohol. So we dance around that for a while, and it will feel devastating, but it will pass and you will survive it. And then I was about maybe 15 months sober, and I was out with some friends, and I just had this, oh my God, I'm having more fun than they are. And I realized, like, everything I had believed about drinking and sobriety was not true. It was the complete reverse. So this is, people, you're going to feel that. I don't think anyone stops drinking and doesn't feel grief, some feeling of devastation, some feeling of loss. It's going to feel like that. But those feelings are not based on a fact, on a truth. They're based on a belief and a perception that you have about alcohol that's completely faulty. And if you give it some time and get some help, it will all change.
So how do you work with someone on shifting their limiting beliefs around this?
So one of the big pieces of work I do is, so I make two promises with my clients that I will, can I swear? I will fuck up your drinking, and they will experience a transformation. And the reason I can promise that is a piece of work that I do is based on rational motive behavioral therapy, and it's to do with looking at resentments. And we all have resentments. I imagine if you're getting a divorce, you probably have a lot of resentments. We go under the hood of that and see the mechanics of it, and it blows everything wide open. It's just fascinating. We can see it all comes down to belief systems, and it all comes down to belief systems formed in childhood. So it might be like I'm just not heard. I'm not heard in this relationship. I'm not seen in this relationship. And what happens is we see the world through a filter system that supports whatever belief we have. So if you feel like you're not worth anything, say my belief was I'm not good enough, and we work together and you say, oh, Veronica, great job, by the way, with that piece of work last week. Really great job. We were so pleased. You did so well. For 1 second, I'll be like, oh, thank you, Karen. But then my belief system, that doesn't fit. So my belief system, that voice in my head will go, she doesn't really mean it. She says that to everybody. Like, it wasn't a really big deal anyway. Well, if she knew the corners you cut, she wouldn't be thinking that at all, right? So my thinking will make that fit into, but you're not good enough. So I just reveal all of that. And then we see it's not the world doing these things to you. It's you telling yourself a story according to the events going around that are happening. There's an event, you tell yourself a story that it's just goes along with whatever belief you have about yourself.
So is it really just putting one foot in front of another? Like, once you're looking at those beliefs, is it just like you have to go out and experience what's more real often enough to be like,
I teach my clients how to have a very specific practice.
okay.
So it's like, so we develop a practice that we do most days that reveals ourselves to ourselves. Because our like my thinking can, like, I've got a black belt in mental health, but my thinking can drift off. It's just like doing yoga, right? You just have to keep practicing it. Right. So I have a practice where I specifically write things out in a certain way that enable me to go, oh, that's not what's happening here, right? Because I'm really good at lying to myself. So for me, I needed stuff that was really concrete. I couldn't wishy-washy, like I couldn't, like I was, somebody tell me specifically what I need to do to be happy and I'll do it. So I'm very specific in that. So it's all about having a practice where you just spend a little bit of time with yourself most days to reveal yourself to yourself and get back on track.
And the time frame, if somebody comes to you, a realistic time frame going from whatever your drinking habit is to being sober, what is the potential span of that for someone who's committed?
That so every day is going to get better. Early, this is what I tell my clients: early sobriety is not how it is long term. So early sobriety is roughly the first year. It's a very unique, not to be repeated experience. And the reason for that is several things. First of all, it takes your body, brain, gut, hormones at least a year to recover. So one of the things, like, people, I see this all the time, like, oh, I quit, like I got to like 45 days, but I was just so flat and boring. Well, the reason for that is dopamine. The reason for that is just your brain hasn't been able to, it's going to take several months for your brain to make dopamine at the levels that you need it to feel okay. So that's just, again, science. You need to give it a bit more time. Exercise will help. You need to go through all the firsts: first Christmas sober, first New Year's, first July 4th, first birthday. All of these things are going to be weird. They're just going to be weird at first. You're going to have to navigate them. How do you do it? And you're also, for the first time, really feeling the full spectrum of your emotions without a numbing agent. And again, that there's a bit of a roller coaster in the beginning. Like, you feel flooded with lots of feelings, and other days you feel kind of dead. And it just takes time for that to even out, but it keeps getting better. There's lots and lots of wins along the way. I often have, like, clients they'll come to a group I'm doing, and they're celebrating a year of sobriety, and they'll, oh my God, I can't believe how far I've come and how much has changed. And I'm like, oh, do you remember about 5 months ago when you were like, like, there's always like a trudgy bit that you just, and that's where you need community. You need community. So I want to tell you, a week of not drinking, you're going to feel better. But there's just so much. 30 days, you're going to feel better. 6 months, a year. And then after a year is when, once your sobriety is solid, that's when I tell my clients, if we've realized that there's some childhood trauma, or there's some real wounds, that would be the time to maybe go and work with a professional. Once your sobriety is solid, we don't do childhood trauma on day 15. We put that to one side. Let's get solid sobriety, so that then maybe you can go and talk about stuff
otherwise you're dipping your toe in some wild waters too early.
Yeah, people think that they have to resolve that first to be okay, and it's not. It's the other way around. You just it's really, I think, irresponsible and dangerous to, like, when someone's in and out of drinking, to open up, exactly. But and your psyche will tell you, right? I was like, I don't know, almost 2 years sober when I just went into 18 months of therapy around my dad, right? It just was time. It just, my your subconscious will tell you.
Yeah. Beautiful. Well, before I ask you to talk about your podcast and your book and your website, is there anything that I haven't asked that would be really top of mind for you that you would like to share with our listeners?
I think you've asked some really good questions. And I just would emphasize that if you are in a relationship with somebody who is drinking too much, stop trying to fix them from this moment onwards, and go and learn about codependency and what you can do to help and support yourself. There is nothing you can say or do that will change it. However, it's interesting, if you change you, that has a ripple effect on other people.
Thank you so much for sharing that message. I think that's one of my central messages, and it's so vitally important to stay on your side of the street, keep it clean, do your work. And as the dance changes, they either dance closer to you or they dance further away, and you don't have to do anything. So I love that. You have a book called Soberful?
Yeah, so this came out a couple of years ago now. Soberful. It's a therapy. It's an emotional sobriety program. So in it, I talk about the 5 pillars of sobriety, and they're a framework for stopping drinking. Because I see a lot of people stop drinking and then wonder why they're not okay. And we need a program. We need a practice. We need, like, what is it exactly you need to do? So it really kind of lays that out. It has journaling prompts and all that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you something about that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say somebody's listening and they're like, all right, I'm on the should I end or should I mend fence. My spouse is in Al-Anon or doing whatever they're AA, doing whatever they're doing. They're working on their drinking. Would it be helpful for them to read your book? Is there information in there that if you're the loved one of somebody who's challenged with drinking, that reading the book would be helpful?
Oh, absolutely, because it will help you understand their thinking and their view of the world. But also the feedback I've had on it is that it's not like the program is for anybody. It's a personal development program. So it will teach you how to have boundaries and balance and connection, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And folks, that's emotional sobriety is what it's all about. And whatever your circumstances going through your complex divorce, everything that we're talking about is only going to help and benefit you as an individual, you as a single parent and co-parent. So definitely check it out. And then you also have a podcast.
Sure, yeah, I have the Soberful podcast, which is available on all platforms, and a YouTube channel. If you just put my name in, Veronica Valli, that should come up. And then I have like a coaching program and digital products and all that kind of stuff.
So if someone is interested in learning more about your program or products, where can they find you?
Soberful.com. It's all there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing. I think it's like incredibly aligned with so much of what our audience is going through and what they need. And you really brought a lot of clarity. So I appreciate that. And folks, check out Veronica. She's got some great resources, great programs. If this is resonating with you, go and tune into her podcast as well. And we'll be back again with another episode real soon. You take care. Thanks for joining us on the Journey Beyond Divorce podcast. I hope you found guidance and encouragement to help you along your journey. If you like my podcast, please take a minute to subscribe and leave a review on iTunes. You can also visit us at jbddivorcesupport.com, where our team of coaches support both men and women through our one-on-one coaching, group programs, online courses, and free resources. Stay tuned for our next episode, and I'll talk to you soon.